Hey, so welcome to the channel. I'm Tim. If you're new here, I upload new videos each week all about running. This video, I've got a great one for you. We're going to be looking at two shoes from Saucony, part of their Endorphin series. We're going to be comparing the Endorphin Pro to the Endorphin Speed. The Endorphin Pro has that green outsole, and the Endorphin Speed has that pink outsole, as well as the pink around the heel collar as well. They might look alike, but they are very, very different shoes. They're certainly not identical twins. We're just going to call them the Wonder Twins. So let's take the Wonder Twins out for a run, and then we'll meet right back here, and we'll talk about these shoes in much greater detail. Hey, so now let's talk about the Wonder Twins. So in order to get a good comparison that I could share with you today, I ran in these shoes back to back, and I have over 40 miles on both of the shoes already. But for that run sequence that you saw there, I took them out on the identical run. I ran in the Speed first, and then after about 6 miles, 6.5 miles, something like that, I switched up and I ran in the Pro for the same amount of distance. And that way I could get a really good sense of just the differences and how they felt underfoot and their performance, that I might be able to share more accurate information with you here today. And we'll get to the performance later on a little bit in this comparison video. I want to start by just going through some of the stats of the shoes, and then we're going to look at the upper as well as the midsole and the outsole and all that good stuff that we look at when we do shoe reviews. So there are a little bit of differences in the weight of the shoes. So the Pro, the Endorphin Pro, comes in at 7.5 ounces, and I'll have to look up the grams, and I'll put that up on screen for you here in post. And then for the Speed, that comes in a little bit heavier, but not much, considering how much extra material and durability I think that they gave to this shoe. And we'll check that out when we start looking at the uppers and the midsoles and so on. But it came in at 7.8 ounces. And again, I'll put the grams up on top there for you to take a look if you like your weight in grams. So now let's take a look at the uppers. And we're going to start with the Pro. Now the Pro is considered to be basically an elite racing shoe. So it really falls in that category of the Nike Next Percent or the 4% shoe. You know, maybe a comparison could be drawn between this and the Pro and the Hoka Carbon X SPE, something along those lines. So high quality, lightweight racing shoe. And of course they built it that way. So as we look at the upper, you're going to notice that it's very clean lines. There's no extra material basically anywhere that they don't need it. and it's got some smaller ventilation perforations in the material as well compared to the Speed. So let's take a look at the Speed. Now with the Speed, you're going to see that they've got some extra material, basically some stitching that's throughout the toe box and around the upper, and they also have some slight or small plastic overlays to help give it a little bit of structure as well. Now the eyelet chain on both of these seem to be basically the same, so there's really not much differences there. There is some slight differences in the tongue. The tongue on the Pro is really thin. It's comfortable. Both had the tongue is gusseted on both shoes, so there's a small piece of material that keeps them in place. The Speed is a little thicker there at the top, a little more cushy, I guess, for that tongue, but both felt very comfortable. I didn't have any issues with them not feeling comfortable. I guess if I had just one gripe about the tongue, is that it might be just a tad long for me. I would prefer that it be maybe a 1/4 inch or so, a little bit shorter on both shoes. And that's simply because it's summertime right now, so I'm wearing the least amount of material on my body as I can, because some of these days it's in the mid-90s and it's pretty hot, so you're trying to stay as cool as you can. And when you wear those no-show socks or what have you out on your runs, the tongue comes up just above that, and there's a little bit of rubbing on your foot, so it would be nice if that tongue were just a little bit shorter so that my sock could cover a little bit more of it. A very small thing, so certainly nothing that would prohibit me or prevent me from buying these shoes again. So now let's take a look at those collars on the shoes, and you'll notice that the Speed is just a little bit more plush than the Pro, as it should be. The Speed is the training companion to the Pro, so it's more of that daily trainer that you can log a lot more miles on than you would in the Pro. Now let's look at the heel counter on these shoes. Now with the Pro, there's really no structure back there at all. It's pretty loose, and consequently you kind of feel that when you're out running. I didn't feel like my heel was really locked in. It didn't bother me, but I did notice it, and it felt a little bit airy back there when I'm more accustomed to having my heel set a little more securely in that heel cup area. I didn't have that issue with the Speed. I think a part of that is because there is more material around that heel counter. It's got some plastic overlays that help keep your foot or your heel into place, and it was just a little bit of getting used to it, and that's the difference between running in a racing shoe and running in a daily trainer. So it didn't, like I said, it didn't bother me, but it was definitely something to take note of. Now looking at the midsoles in these shoes, now they have the same PWRRUN foam, PWRRUN PB foam that Saucony has introduced in their shoes, and both of them are pretty bouncy. There is a slight difference. The height in the shoes varies by a couple millimeters. So in the Pro, it's 33.5 millimeter heel stack, and in the forefoot, of course, they have that 8 millimeter drop, would be 25.5 millimeters in the forefoot. So you got 33 to 25. In the Speed, you got just a couple more millimeters of that PWRRUN foam. So it's got 35.5 millimeters in the heel stack and 27.5 in the forefoot. But otherwise, the foam itself is the same, and they both are pretty bouncy. And now sandwiched in there, however, is a big difference. So with the Pro, you got a carbon fiber plate, which is a stiff plate. And in the Speed, it's a nylon plate, which is much more forgiving and gives you a bit more of a natural feel when you're out running. And then there on the bottom, so we'll flip the shoes over and we'll take a look at the outsoles. The outsoles are basically the same. They're different color, but otherwise I didn't see any differences at all. And as long as we got the shoe flipped over, we'll take a quick look at that rubber to see how it's doing. And as you can see, there aren't very many signs of wear on either shoe. So I think that carbon rubber is doing a terrific job in protecting that PWRRUN foam. And the PWRRUN foam that is exposed on both shoes seems to be holding up pretty well. And again, I've got somewhere around 40 to 50 miles on these shoes. So, you know, I haven't jacked them up to the 100-mile range yet, but I will get there. And when I do, I'll do a full durability and performance review at that point in these shoes. But for comparison and just for you, I wanted you to have an idea of what the differences are in these shoes in case you're trying to make a decision on which one, or if you want to buy both or neither one. So now let's get back and talk a little bit more about the performance of these shoes, because that's the part that I like to talk about really the most. They are very different, and I noticed right away when I switched up shoes that the Speed was a bit more plush. It was just a little bit more comfortable underfoot when I was running. So as soon as I switched up shoes, put the Pro on, I could tell right away that it was a stiffer shoe and a little less forgiving. Both shoes are very quick. I felt like the Speed was better at all the different race paces, or all the different paces that I was running in. So it didn't matter if I was going slow or fast. It felt pretty comfortable right from the start. With the Pro, I didn't have that sense of comfort at every speed. Now, it felt good and it performed really well when I had picked up the pace. And so I think a part of that, and I was really thinking about that when I was running in these shoes and why that is. And I think it's a matter of being a mid-foot striker like I am. And the faster I was running, the more I was leaning from my ankles forward and really, you know, getting that stride going and getting some quick feet. But I was also moving from a mid-foot to more of a forefoot striker in the Pro. And the more I did that, the more response I seemed to feel. So I think that carbon fiber plate, and I'm a lighter runner, so I don't know that I always get the full effect of that bounce from carbon fiber plates. I don't know that I weigh enough to really get that good spring forward. But in this case, I did notice a difference, and it certainly is stiffer, and I felt like I was getting more of a pop or spring forward with that carbon fiber at the higher or the faster paces that I ran. So definitely a couple things to think about if you're trying to choose between one of these two shoes. Also consider the price. So the Pro runs $200 US and the Speed comes in at $160. Between the two shoes, if I could only pick one, I would pick the Speed. And that's simply because it's more versatile. It's still a very quick shoe. It feels a little more natural underfoot when I run. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for the Pro in my shoe rotation. Basically, it's a racing shoe, and that's what I would intend to use it for. I do intend to use the Speed as the training companion, just as Saucony had intended. I enjoy running in both of these shoes, but again, if I could only pick one, I'd probably go with the Speed. And it certainly doesn't hurt that it's $40 cheaper. That's always a good thing. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the Endorphin Pro and the Speed. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, maybe give us a thumbs up. As always, run tall, run strong, and be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.